So I'm going to talk about academic will and re-engaging teaching focused academics with industry. So I've got four questions here that I'm going to answer. So what is academic will? Why did I do it? How did I do it? And then I think an important question here, which is, was it worthwhile? I think that's critical for these sorts of things. So what is academic will? Work integrated learning. So basically what happens is that the academic enters the workplace, and in my case, I entered as an intern. And for me, what it enabled me to do was to test the curriculum in the workplace. And a really important thing was to experience the workplace as a graduate would. And the critical thing for me was it brought me up to speed with current industry practice. And so, you know, going on to why did I do it? The real reason that I did it was that I've been working in academic administration for quite a few years, 5 or 6 years, I think, 5 years. And one of the people who did our spatial science units, which includes geographic information systems, he'd been off the campus for 2 years and his units had been run by a casual member of staff. And then he retired, which meant that his position was vacant. And I picked up the curriculum with a colleague, and when we started to teach the unit, we realized that the curriculum that was being taught was actually the curriculum that I had written some 10 or 12 years ago. There were just some minor modifications to it, but it was really basically the old curriculum that I had written many years ago. So I was really concerned that what we were teaching the students really was the wrong thing, and that we had to quickly sort of regroup and work out what it was that we needed to teach. But sort of the rationale that I developed after I did it is that, you know, if we've got really good, strong links with industry, that is going to help with the employability of our graduates. And academic staff need to have current industry practice. When you're a research-focused academic or a TNR, teaching and research academic, that's a bit easier because you've got your research activities which usually engage you with industry. You're looking for grants and linkage grants and things like that. So you're working with industry quite a lot so that you know what's going on there. When you're a teaching focused academic, it's really easy to become isolated. And so if you are going to be teaching focused, you have to sort of create your own opportunities to get that industry exposure. Now, the other thing, you might not be able to see that, but I've got industry needs, maybe it's a little bit too grey to be able to see, but I've got industry needs over here, which is a little bit grey. So we had our subject learning outcomes, which we sort of documented and knew exactly what that was. And what we wanted to really know was what the industry needs were. This academic will was actually a significant component of another big program where we actually got industry people on campus and had a workshop with them. We surveyed quite a lot of industry people. I presented a couple of seminars to industry groups and things like that. So it was a component of a big push to work out what the industry needs were in spatial science. So what we were aiming to do was to bring our subject learning outcomes, sort of get that closer to what the industry needs were. Whoops. So the aims of the academic will was to evaluate the curriculum and learning objectives, compare our practical classes with the day-to-day activities. One of the things that I really wanted to do was to just make sure that the students, when they were sitting in the class, going through all the exercises that they were going through, that was mimicking what was happening in industry. The other thing is that because I had done some research, like I'd done my PhD with using GIS, geographic information systems, I just wanted to update my skills as well. So that was a really good opportunity to do that. I had quite two short placements, two-week placements. The first one was with the Department of Primary Industries here, which is a government department working in agriculture mainly. With them, I worked for 2 weeks, a bit like a project officer, and it was quite good because they had a project that had stalled because they didn't have the resources to keep that project going. So I came on board and spent 2 weeks kickstarting that project again. The other one was with a council. So I basically worked as a GIS officer for the council, which was really fantastic. When I was doing it, I was really, I had developed a methodology that I used to be able to evaluate the curriculum. And so what I did was at the end of every day, I looked at our learning outcomes for 3 units. We had 3 units that we're evaluating: a first year unit, a second year unit, and a third year unit. And so this is the middle one, Introduction to Geographic Information Systems. So basically what I did is at the end of the day, I looked at what activities I'd done during the day and related that to the content that we teach, and also related that to the learning outcomes. I had a couple of sections in there too, which was like what's missing. So looking for gaps as well. So you can see there that 3D representation, you know, I basically said it wasn't relevant today, or I strongly disagreed with the thought that that was necessary for a student to operate as a capable graduate. So I had a process there which I used. So I'll just go up here. So, I think I'm going a lot quicker than I thought I would. Okay, so was it worthwhile? For the students, I think the answer is really yes, and I think I'm really happy to add a couple of exclamation marks there. You know, the interesting thing that I did on Tuesday, so I'm taught this class on Tuesday, and I'd written these slides on Monday, and so then I was in the class on Tuesday. And as I was talking to the students in the class there, I thought to myself, you know, that's come from my academic WIL experience, that I'm expressing this way, or pointing out something that was really important for them to know. And I thought, you know, that has just come directly from that experience of working in industry and knowing, you know, what the students need to know. So GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems. And I've just went through some job ads on Friday or Monday, and about a third of the job applications that students would do for a graduate position require or have desirable as GIS skills. So, you know, I just wanted to emphasize that. But I think what the advantage of my academic WIL and the whole program, especially that academic WIL, I think, is that I've now got a better idea of what competent means, what proficient means, and what familiarity means. So instead of just thinking, okay, well, you've got to show that you're competent with the use of GIS, I have a real idea about what that is. And I work in integrated learning, so that's why I got this idea, because I've worked in integrated learning for about 10 years. And I had a student who was applying for a position working with GIS in industry. And what she did was that she copied and pasted our learning outcomes from our Introduction to GIS unit and used that as the basis of, you know, convincing her future employer that she had GIS skills. So that was quite satisfying to see that happen. So was it worthwhile to the uni? Yes, and I've got a big but there. You know, it strengthened the relationship with industry, and it helped me to develop more internship placements. The other thing that it has done is that I'm now getting more internship placements which are GIS focused. So I'm getting students who are actually going out into industry for their placements and working as a GIS officer, which is something that didn't happen very much before. You know, it was low cost training. You know, training with GIS is about $100 a day. I had 20 days of really good training, and it was really focused on what the students need. So you know, when I was doing that training, it's something that can directly come back into the classroom as well. Look, my big but there is that, you know, we do these things to improve employability and graduate outcomes and things like that. And the but is that many institutions, that's not valued. What the institution values is research income, research papers and things like that. And then when it comes to these, if you like, teaching focused outcomes, they're not as valued as some of those research ones. But I've got a double but, because the Australian government, anyhow, is going to shift some of its funding onto those very outcomes. So basically, our Minister for Education in Australia is saying that the model would provide an incentive for universities to produce job-ready graduates. And so one of the things that, you know, some of the work that I've done is that I've done quite a lot of work is working out that our graduates are job ready. And also building these skills in spatial science is also critical. Was it worthwhile to me? And I would say yes, but, you know, the BS with the double exclamations marks is that, yeah, look, I've got much more skills. I've got much more enthusiasm because, you know, it's great to be in the classroom talking to the students and sort of saying, you know, this is really important for you to know. If you walk into your workplace and you don't know this, you're going to look a little bit foolish. So it's really good to have that knowledge that I can impart to the students. So it's just made me much more enthusiastic. I really enjoyed working with experienced practitioners. So these are people who use this software every day of every working day. So it was really fantastic to be in there. And you know, I wasn't that embarrassed either. So I have been working in GIS for 30 years. So I was able to show my hosts a couple of things, a couple of tricks that they didn't know. My problem solving is much more intuitive. So now from doing that experience, I can sort of walk up to a student's screen now and just say, I know what's going wrong, with just looking at it from 3 or 4 meters away, rather than plodding through some sort of process to work out what's going on. 90% of the time I'm right. So really for me, the big yes there is just really greater confidence in the classroom, greater confidence with my curriculum, greater confidence with our assessment as well. But the but comes because one of the things that I did in the paper that I published is that I mapped all of my academic WIL outcomes against the Australian University teaching criteria and standards. You know, the big but that comes there is that my university doesn't really recognise those standards. So I went for promotion last year and was knocked back. And one of the reason that was given to me was that I don't have an international profile. But the thing about it is that they don't use these standards. So it was difficult for me to convince them, mapping against those standards, that I've got those achievements. If your university doesn't recognise those things, it's not much use mapping those out. One of the things that I'm doing in the process now is that I'm in the process of applying for a Higher Education Academy Senior Fellow. And many of you may not be familiar with that, but there's 3 components of it. Areas of activity, so the activities that you participate in, your core knowledge about your discipline, and your professional values. There's a whole host of these, which I've just sort of put in to just show you that there's a number of them, rather than getting you to try and read all of the text in there, because you know, time is not available for me to go through that. What I did do was, when I was putting in my application for that senior fellow, it really gave me a good focus for activity 5, which is engage in continuing professional development in disciplines and evaluation of professional practice. So I was able to use my academic WIL experience to really put forward, hopefully, a convincing argument about that. On a lesser area, it sort of gave me design and planning learning activities and programs of study, you know, knowledge about the subject method, material, appropriate methods of teaching, so that was quite good. And then the other, when you're applying for the Higher Education Academy, the values part of it is often the more difficult one to come to grips with. And so in that one, you know, using evidence-informed approaches and the outcomes from continuing professional development was one that I was able to provide a lot of evidence in that application to do that. Okay, and to where to from here? So the next step in my process for academic WIL is that I'll be going to the UK and Canada next year. So what I'll be doing in both those countries is spending a month in the classroom and evaluating their curriculum, spending between 2 and 3, maybe even 4 weeks in industry, and then coming back to the institution and spending a month evaluating their curriculum versus what is going on in industry. And the Canadian people, it's at Victoria University, when I sent them an email to approach them, they said, oh, this is just perfect timing for us because we were just about to embark on that sort of process.